Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining me on episode 37 of the show about the show. I have a very cool and unique guest today coming on the show today. I have the owner of Fan HQ in Minneapolis, Shaun Hagglund. He has 2 locations. They opened in 2009. And he's been both a fan and an owner ever since then. And we're going to talk about what player he is close personal friends with, how that player affects the business that he does, as well as the signings that he holds. Because he brings in some really, really unique signings. Some of them are free signings. Some of them are paid signings, that kind of thing. And yes, this is a Minnesota business, and yes, I do live in Minnesota. But you know, the whole point of this podcast is to try and get kind of a different and unique angle. And this is from a guy who runs basically a sports memorabilia store that does signings. So, really looking forward to that. Shaun's going to be here shortly to talk to us about everything going on with Fan HQ Sports, or Fan HQ, the sports world, the sports memorabilia world that he sells, the Twins, all that kind of stuff. I do want to give a little promotion to the show that I have coming up tonight. I have another one at 7 Eastern, and that is Tommy John and Tommy John Jr. I'm going to have them on for a 1-hour discussion. We're going to talk about Tommy John's surgery back in the 70s by Frank Job. We're going to talk about the book that they have co-written and how it affects and how Tommy John's surgery affects everybody as young as little leaguers all the way up to major leaguers, and why it's estimated that 1/3 out of all major league pitchers will have Tommy John surgery at some point in their career. So it's going to be a really good episode. I'm looking forward to it, but right now, this episode is for Shaun, and we are going to bring him in, owner of 2 of the most popular memorabilia stores in the state of Minnesota, Fan HQ owner, Shaun Hagglund. Hey, Shaun, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How's it going, Devin?
I'm doing well. Hey, thanks for giving me some of your time today. So talk to me about how you decided to start these businesses, how you came up with the name, Fan Headquarters, all that kind of stuff.
Well, the business started pretty organically. I was simply a collector who was chasing Justin Morneau all over the place and getting stuff signed, and really started collecting back in the late 70s. My dad bring me to a Twins game or to Vikings training camp in Mankato and just collecting signatures there. So it became that, it kind of went from that to more of a hobby. And then I got into the player website side of things with Justin Morneau. I was working for a company that did websites for different sports teams, and just tried to develop like a more of a fan-driven site for individual players. Back then, there was no Twitter or any social media at all, so a website was pretty much the closest connection you could have to the player. So that just kind of grew organically from a fan site to a little more of an official fan site with Justin. We started adding product, merchandise, T-shirts primarily, and just kind of grew it from there. I moved out to Maryland to run a T-shirt company out there. When I came back, I had no actual job, so was lucky to get accepted to have a booth out of the Minnesota State Fair, selling our twin stuff, which at that time was Morneau, Nathan Kadire, Span, Crane. We were selling T-shirts for those guys, and opened up a temporary store in 2009 at Ridgedale, and kind of just went from there. So it was just supposed to be a 2-month thing, but with Target Field opening and with the success of the Vikings at the time, it was a pretty fortunate time to start a business, so we were able to kind of keep it going since then. So we're coming up on 9 years now this year in November. So that's kind of how it all started. It wasn't really something that we set out to do, just something that kind of worked out that way.
Now you talked about kind of chasing down Justin Morneau. Can you talk about how that whole process started and why Justin Morneau and how your relationship with him has evolved to today?
Well, originally, I mean, going all the way back to when I was first starting collecting and just good old-fashioned baseball cards, I was a Carlton Fifth collector. That's kind of what I was focused on. So I was trying to get, every Carlton Fifth card you could get, back in the 80s, 90s. And so my, sort of personal collection started with Fifth. I ended up meeting another Fifth collector, kind of transferring a bunch of stuff over to him, and then started to focus a little more on Justin Morneau, just as he was supposed to be the future power hitter of the Twins. There was interest. It wasn't ridiculous around Minnesota like it was for Joe Mauer at the time. They were both kind of coming up together. So I decided to just kind of specialize, if you will, in Justin Morneau collectibles and stuff. So, I go see him out at Twins Fest every year, try to bring unique things to him to get signed. And that's kind of how that started. So I'd have stuff signed at Twin Fest, ask him to inscribe something unique, use a number that he, wore on the minor, something like that. And then it just kind of grew from there to where he kind of got to know me as, the guy who would have some unique stuff. So tried to take care of him a little bit as well. Like if I got something that he wanted, I would give him, an extra copy of a photo or something like that. So that's kind of where it started. And then developing, through when he joined the Twins in 2003 to like 2006, just seeing him at different events. Eventually, when the website side of things started coming around, I asked if it would be okay if I started a fan site for him. And that was early in 2006. He hadn't really done anything, exceptional yet. So we kind of got that going just as his MVP season pair sort of took off. And the piece that we did with him there was 33 for MVP T-shirt. So we released that, and that got really great traction across Minnesota, or even in the New York Times. So that kind of was the first thing that we ever did. And, we made donations to his charities and so on, through that. So everything that we put together with him had a charitable piece with it along. So like a royalty that would be paid to the Morneau Family Foundation or whatever it was at the time that he wanted to support. So that's how that kind of just grew. And through his casino night fundraisers, or now, his winter warm-up coat drive, which we host at the store, all these different things just kind of took off. I mean, there was never like a grand plan. It just sort of, over years of developing the relationship, friendship, trust, that's kind of how it all just sort of took off. So as starting from a collector standpoint, I think that a lot of collectors, that's kind of what, we hope as we get into it. It's kind of just a distant thing that you kind of think about, like how cool would it be to, go to a game with your favorite player or whatever. And, fortunately, that's just kind of worked out where we've actually had some really incredible opportunities because the relationship with him. So I don't think you can ask for much more, like as a fan along with it. I still get nervous around the dude every time I see him, which is kind of a joke between us, just that, like I'll fall over my words like I probably will today and everything else, misspeak here, put my foot in my mouth, whatever it is. There's always some moments of danger around him, but he's just, he's still such a good guy. I was very fortunate to sort of start collecting a guy who just turned out to be awesome on top of being a baseball player, great baseball player with, a lot of cool things that happened in his career. Just a cool guy on top of that, too, with the charities they support. Sorry, we got a new dog who wants to get in on this, too. I think he's just voicing his support. I'm sorry. So, but that's how that kind of grew. I mean, nothing really set out. Just, started from scratch being a collector, and it just sort of bloomed from there.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the events that you mentioned that's really, really popular is the Morneau coat drive. For a lot of people who may not live in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area or who may not even live in the state of Minnesota and not know what that is, can you talk about it? It's such a great cause and a cool event.
Yeah, and that's something that Justin started, I think it was in 2010 when he was a member of the Twins. Used to be, the first year you could donate a winter coat. All the coats are given to the Salvation Army in the Harbor Light Center, so it's right downtown Minneapolis, and they're all distributed locally to those in need. So you donated a winter coat, and then you got an autograph from Justin. And that's it was just as simple as that, how it started. And the Twins did that 2 or 3 years while Justin was here, 10 and 11, I think it was. But once he was created, he actually, and his wife Krista, stopped by our store at Ridgedale and asked if we were interested in hosting the coat drive at our store, and I was just all on board for that. That was awesome. So we've just picked it up once he was no longer a member of the Twins. And, I think, I'm trying to remember how many thousands. I'd have to look back at the press release, but I think it's tens of thousands of coats have been donated to this point. Each year it just kind of gets bigger and bigger. So now when fans donate like 3 winter coats, they get an in-person autograph from Justin, or if they want to donate 1 winter coat, Justin signs like 400 or 500 8x10. Personally signs them all. You can trade 1 coat for 1 autograph photo. And then we have a big event at Ridgedale each year in November where Justin comes out and signs autographs for people. And they can make an additional donation if they want to add like an inscription, if they want to add the MVP or batting champ inscription. They can make a cash donation, which goes to the Salvation Army. But the really cool part about it is, the Salvation Army basically sets up a store like in their open area and within their building in the Harbor Light Center, and people can just come in and choose the coats that they need. And it's really cool, but also, kind of sad or unfortunate that people, don't have enough money to even be able to buy a coat. So it's pretty cool that locally, he can support, or we can help support all of us working together, such a great cause, and get coats out to the people in need locally. So it's really something. And we have, huge donors who run their own coat drive and bring in hundreds of coats on their own, too, to contribute. So, the van will actually go to their house and pick them up. There's just so many, they couldn't even bring them to the mall. So that's really cool as well. Those who donate like 33 coats, they get what we call the MVP ticket, and that includes some extra benefits. So it's just a win-win all the way around with people being supported locally, fans locally being able to meet Justin, get a free autograph. Justin has a really great time at the event. Takes his time. There's no rush for anybody. Lots of great exchanges at the autograph table. So it's my favorite event of the year. So I really look forward to that. And we'll do it again this year. It'll either be in late November or early December. We just kind of wait to see how the schedule plays out for Justin everywhere. And if you want to share that, that's great. But we'll get it all over the Incatics page and emails and everything else, too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely share that. Just when you guys find out, let me know.
Will do.
Is that your most popular event that you guys do every year?
What's the most people that we get? I'd say. For an annual event, I think it is our only annual event right now. There's probably a few other things that we're involved in that are fairly regular. That's our only real annual event. But, going back to even the first year, that's still the most people that have ever been through a line. The first year we did it, it was just 1 coat. You could get a in-person autograph ticket, and we gave away 333 tickets the first year, and they went fast, like within a couple weeks. So 333 people is just a ridiculous line of people. If you've waited in line before, it might seem long, but it might only be 50, 75 people. That thing we just packed Ridgedale Center for that. So that was easily the most people who ever went through to get an autograph before. The other events we kind of call sold out, if they hit 250 or 300 people typically. But, one person can typically get more than 1 item signed, so it isn't the number of people that, the coat drive generates, where you can only get 1 per person. So it's a really great line, a real big line and a bunch of people, but also such a positive event, because people donated. I think they feel really good about it, or they should, that they help people out, and then they also benefit from it. So that's, just all the way around awesome event.
Absolutely. And kudos to you guys for being willing to do that. But more importantly, kudos to the Ink Addicts for coming out and stepping up year after year after year, showing their love for you guys, showing their love for Justin and the Twins, and more importantly, like you said, to help people in need that really need it. So,
everybody comes out a winner on that one.
Absolutely. When we were setting up this, when I was messaging you to set up this podcast, I asked you about the first Twins signing you ever did. Can you tell me that story and the lesson that you learned from that?
I actually had to go back to that. I went back and I checked the numbers on that, but I'll get back. I had Haley Quince run the numbers on it. And it turns out Joe Nathan actually was our first one. And we had Joe Nathan in while he was on the disabled list. And that was another fundraiser for Joe's charity. So people who bought a ticket, all the money went to support Joe. But there was another player that we had in, I won't necessarily get into specifics, pretty early on. And the player just wasn't doing all that well in the major leagues, and I remember being out afterwards, and I guess basically to jump all the way ahead to the end of the story is just that it kind of taught me to more appreciate the guests and the players as people, and being able to separate that from their performance on the field, which we get sucked into so much sometimes, where we can be disappointed about how somebody's doing, whether they're not hitting or pitching or whatever. And you kind of forget that these are people who are going to work every day and trying to excel at their job, but the people they're facing are doing the same, and sometimes people they're facing are just better or more successful for whatever reason at the time. But the story that you and I talked about a little bit had to do with being out and making a post on social media during a game and a negative post towards one of the Twins players, and then getting a text message from the wife of another player saying, so when my husband does poorly, are you going to slam them online as well? And just kind of made me stop for a second and think, yeah, maybe our place in this business, what we're doing is fun. We don't need to be critical of what's going on the field, everybody knows when the guy's struggling and so on. And we watch games critically as well, but it's just not our place to go out and make our feelings known about some of that stuff. So it was a really great lesson as far as looking at what we're going to be posting, look at the message that we're sending, and really try to keep it positive and fun, because that's why we're doing what we're doing. It's not, we're not changing the world in the sense of, doctors, lawyers, whatever, something like that. But we have a really awesome, fun. We're in entertainment, so let's just focus on the positive sides of the entertainment. Rather than, be critical of, our players or potential guests, even as it is. So I think that was kind of the lesson we were talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that we learned.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a good one. And again, eye-opening, right? All these guys, we all know who's doing well and who's not doing well, and there's no need for us to pile on in some of these cases, so it was a good lesson, again, just sort of separating the performance from the person.
Talk about how you got into the signings, because you do signings. One of the things that I really like about your store is you don't just do Twins and Vikings signings. You do Timberwolves signings. You had Karl Anthony Towns in, I believe, 3 times that I can think of. You just had Sylvia Fowles, the WNBA champion. She brought her the Lynx WNBA trophy from 2017 in. You guys have had one of my favorites. You guys have had a bunch of wrestlers in. You had Mick Foley in a few years ago. You had Jimmy Hart in. Talk about how you, without giving away too much, kind of talk about the process of when somebody goes, hey, Shaun, you should get this player to come in, to actually getting that player to sit down and do an autograph signing. Can you walk us through that process?
Yeah, generally, we look for, there's a couple of different ways it can go. In the case of a Mick Foley, a guy could be coming through town, it could be, brought to our attention, or we become aware that a player or a person is coming through town, and we can reach out through an agent or directly, depending, and try to book an appearance that might coincide with their travels through town. So our Rita Ford event, which was really cool, she was coming to Minnesota to play a show the next night at a casino. So we were able to line her up. Or Mick Foley was doing a set of his comedy, for lack of a better word,
comedy,
his evening with. Yeah. He was doing one of his events at the Cinema Grill. And in the case of the Cinema Grill in New Hope, we have a great relationship with them, and they happened to bring it up and said, hey, Mick's coming in the night before. Maybe you want to do something with him. With Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who's coming in July, same sort of thing. He's coming through Minnesota for another event, so this was just an opportunity for him to add on another event, meet a bunch of fans locally, it gave us the opportunity to book him without, having to worry about paying all the travel expenses and everything else. So, when we see these sort of natural fits, we obviously go after that. In terms of, Minnesota athletes, there's not a popular Minnesota athlete that we haven't reached out to see if we could try to book, and they don't all work out, but rest assured, like if you know of a popular Minnesota player, we've tried to bring them in at some point. So, the Jimmy Butlers of the world, we've obviously reached out to them. Towns, it all worked out. Tyus Jones, his guy happened to call us. So it's just a bunch of different ways that it can get done. They have marketing agents that'll reach out to stores and say, hey, do you want to bring this guy in? And it's just a matter of trying to figure out the demand and then trying to figure out, will the price work, with what they want to do. Most of the guys are compensated directly. Some of the guys will do the charity appearances, like we were saying with Joe Nathan or Justin Morneau, or Kurt Suzuki came in to do a fundraiser. There have been just a number of people who have also done complete, fundraiser deals where either donations or the tickets will go to their cause. Matt Cullen was one of those as well, helped Cully's kids. So there's a bunch just, Mike Zimmer, Coach Zimmer Foundation. I mean, that was a huge one the last 2 years in a row. And that's raised, I think, close to $20,000 already for the Mike Zimmer Foundation. So that it just sort of they just sort of take different shapes. Whether Haley runs into one of the gold medal curlers at a charity event, and, grabs an agent's number, or we make a call or send a note through a manager or something like that. Just a lot of different ways that they all work out. And now that we've been doing it for a while, has grown, or our understanding of how to contact people has grown. So, that's kind of how they go from there. But, any new player, it's fun to watch. If a guy hits his first home run, we get, 25 messages like, when are you bringing him in? So we just have to kind of look at the schedule and figure out who's going to bring out a big enough crowd to make it worthwhile for everybody, right? Because our business, if anyone sees our stores, it's 80% apparel, maybe 20%, of the collectible stuff. So for us, those appearances are more promotional. That's more of our marketing budget. We want people to come out to the store, create a really cool event and so on. That's sort of our marketing budget right there. That's how we approach it with these appearances. As much as we'd like to, sell enough tickets, it's also about, staying relevant and just keeping in the front of people's minds when they think about where they need to go to grab their sports stuff.
Absolutely. And I would like to say this to everybody listening. I personally can vouch for Shaun and his staff. It was 2 or 3 years ago. We were on our way with our Ultimate Twins fan Facebook group, and I happened to reach out to a former Twins player, Cole DeVries, on Facebook, who's just a really awesome and amazing guy. He's a realtor in the Minneapolis area now, and I got talking to him, and we set up a time to do a signing, and I happened to let Shaun know, and I said, Shaun, I don't have a good place. Can you help me out? Do you know of a place? And Shaun's like, I'll take care of it. We brought him into the store. I got to sit next to Cole DeVries. It was a pretty cool event. I felt like a rock star that night. It was pretty cool. Other than Justin Morneau, is there anybody that comes in that you're starstruck by?
No, pretty much all of them, Bill. Just real quick on the Cole DeVries thing, what cracked me up, he had signed at our store before, and he donated all the appearance fee. It was a free autograph. You can make a donation, and that was another one that went to the Minnesota Military Family Foundation. And one of the Raptor Center at the University of Minnesota brought a bald eagle out. So it was a photo op. So we're always trying to come up with some sort of random other thing like that, like just some add-ons, whether it's Fogo de Chao gift certificates with the Escobar event or whatever it is. But that's kind of what makes it fun and more creative rather than, our end. What kind of keeps it interesting is to try to come up with some of these different ideas that are both relevant but then also interesting, hopefully, to the collectors who are coming out. But, I'm still, to jump back to your question, still really aware of the celebrity, and I'm still like an autograph chaser in my mind when these guys come in. So, if Tony Oliva stops by, I still know it's Tony Oliva, and I'm aware of it, and think it's really great that he's hanging out in the store, or really all the guys when they come up. I still think it's really cool to be, around them. It was just completely surreal with, Brett Favre being standing there, sitting next to Brett Favre through an event was pretty unreal. I mean, we never really expected to, get to that when we started booking guys. That was, I didn't even think that would ever really be a possibility. And it just sort of all worked out with the timing. So, yeah, I mean, starstruck and nervous, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure I get awkward around most of them still.
Well, and one of to kind of go back on one of the other things you mentioned, you mentioned how you try to do unique events. I think if I remember correctly, one of the events you guys did 3-4 years ago was an evening with Trevor Plouffe. You had like fans that could like meet him at a restaurant or something. He would just kind of stand there, and fans could walk up to him and get his autograph and chill with him. And
yeah, that was the first one. That was Party with the Plouffe. So we did that at one of the breweries. Like, he's a big microbrew, local brew guy. So we lined up a private area at Fulton, and I think we had 50 fans, something like 50 fans could come in. And Trevor was an amazing host. He just walked around and met with everybody. It was supposed to be like an hour long, so we're always trying to be really conscientious about the time for our guests and everything, and try to keep them moving so we don't also disappoint fans at the end. We've never had to turn anybody away. But Trevor was just like, man, don't worry about it. I'm here having a good time. And I think he stayed like 2 hours. I think he was still there at the end, actually, just hanging out with his wife. But that was just so cool, just walking around and meeting everybody. The following year, we did the same with Max Kepler. We did an event over at Target Center, and that was another like 50-person thing. And then this year, we did Get to Know Lomo at another brewery, at Udapil's brewery, and same sort of thing, just the guys just come in, and it's really low-key for them. They seem to really enjoy it. They can grab a beer, grab something to eat, just go table to table, say hello, grab a photo. It's not nearly as intensive as, seeing a big line of people coming at you and just signing. So we get really great feedback from the players on those events, and we love those off-site events where we can hang out and knock back a couple of Coca-Colas and have a good time with it. So, yeah, I mean, we do as many of those as possible. We just have to figure out a way to be able to keep the ticket price affordable because we can have so many fewer people. So, the guests, it just has to kind of all line up, like on a business standpoint, it just has to line up right, where a guest might also not take as much they might not get as much as they normally get for a sit-down autograph signing, but they, sort of appreciate the laid-back nature of the informal nature of doing an event like that. So they come together now and then, especially, with some of the newer guys coming to town like Max and Lomo.
Yeah, absolutely. And those events, those kind of small in-person off-site events, I would think might, for some collectors, kind of hold a little bit more value because, like you said, you get kind of more one-on-one time with that player rather than just kind of being, for lack of a better term, hustled through an autograph line.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the best events that we've ever had, it was a last-minute ad. There was only about 7 days to advertise it, was Watch Monday Night Football with Frank Viola. So Frank happened to be in town. I got a note from his agent, like, hey, Frank's in town this Monday. Is there anything you can do with him? And I was like, well, I can't get enough people here that quickly to do a normal event, but what if we did this? And he, showed up, and there was probably 30 people maybe. It was very small. It was upstairs at, like, McGovern's in downtown St. Paul. But, TVs were playing. But Frank walked around, signed everything, and then just started telling stories, from his time with the Twins, stuff I never heard, stuff that a lot of people can't really repeat necessarily. And he was just telling, like, incredible stories. And you were like, I got so much great feedback from that event, people leaving saying, man, that might have been the best event, that you guys have ever put on. And again, a lot of that gets back to what you're saying, like the interaction. We love that. Like, we want that extra interaction. When all the stars align and we can do an event like that, I mean, we'll do that every time. It's way more personal, and we love it, Some people want to just go and get their autograph and get out. But for those who, want to have a follow-up question, that's kind of that's really what it's made for. And after that event, we were just like, man, I wish more people could have been a part of that because they really would, that word would spread like crazy. just how cool those events are. So, yeah, we're, just always trying, like you said, trying to come up with something new and something more personal or something that creates a better connection. So that was one
Absolutely.
of them, definitely near the top of that list.
And you guys do one of the fun things that you guys did recently. You guys did it last year. You guys don't do just one or two person signings, which are the most common, obviously, because it's easy to get them in. Last year, you guys did a 1987 Twins reunion signing. Can you talk about that and just everything that went into trying to get everybody in and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that was pretty ambitious and in hindsight pretty insane. But we had an agent who does a ton of bookings contact us about, who do you want to bring in? They're friends with some of the players. They're a good friend of Jeff Reardon, actually, and they're his agent for booking these things. And I'm like, well, just send me the list of who you can get. And he just kept getting player after player after player. And it was like, okay, well, let's bring them in. And at the end of the day, we ended up with 22 people signing autographs. But because based on their schedule, they only had a limited window of time. So we brought them all in for the same amount of time at the same time and, sold super tickets and so on. Well, I anticipated people being in multiple lines at different times and just jumping into different lines. What I didn't anticipate was, like, the first super ticket having, like 30 or 40 inscriptions, which suddenly just shut down the line right from the start. So that one caused anxiety for quite some time, but I'm happy to say everybody did get through the line, even though they were a little sweaty waiting in the hallway at a school outside the gym. Everybody did get through and get their autographs once it finally got moving, but that was just absolutely insane. But still really cool to look back and say, man, we had 22 members of the Twins, 87 teams signing all at once. And for the people that bought the photo op, I think they all thought that was pretty remarkable with, 3-4 rows of Twins players sitting on the bleachers, and they just jumped right in the middle there and got their picture. It's pretty cool to see that. That's one of my favorite things, of doing this stuff, is to see those photos when people start posting them on social media and the excitement, like for the collector, but then also other people see it and they're like, whoa, how do, hey, the Mitch, how do you know these guys? How are you getting all these pictures, It's kind of fun just to, see their friends get excited about it too and see it spread. So that, those are the sort of memories you're talking about. That's why I love the post photos, The autographs are awesome because, you can trade or sell an autograph down the road. There's something of a value to it, but those post photos are just personal, and that's why I really like those. I think those are really cool.
Absolutely. So in your personal collection, if they took a Fan HQ camera into your house, what would be the one item that you have that's not for sale? The one baseball item that you have that's not for sale for any price?
Let's see. Well, I don't have any sports stuff hanging up at the house at all. We have, instead of a mud room, I call it the rock room, or we call it the rock room, which is all like music posters and stuff like that. And that stuff's kind of cool, just different shows that we've gone to, or signed guitars or gold records or something like that we've gotten. But, man, I mean, sure. What would I not sell? That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it. It's not that everything's not available for a price, if that made sense. There are things I wouldn't get rid of. I'm just having a tough time thinking. Probably a baseball signed by Jack White. That's probably it, a musician. Because that just got back with him and Justin Morneau and taking batting practice in Colorado. That's probably it as far as, like, one memento. And I have a photo of that's hanging at the store. That's one thing that, I'd never part with, like the guitar pick or pass or anything. That's pretty cool. And then there's some really cool Morneau stuff that I have that I'm probably not even thinking of right now, whether it's a baseball or something, that they've given me. One of the coolest things, that would never be for sale, when we got married, the Morneaus put together a jersey they had signed that said, like, Mr. and Mrs., and then the year, the number 12, and then they had the whole Twins team sign it, and they gave it to us for our wedding. So that's pretty awesome. That one made me choke up a bit, getting a gift from them, even though the wedding was a no-gift thing. That's pretty cool, and that'll go up when we, finish a sports room in the basement here at some point. So that's probably one not for sale.
Absolutely. Now, one of the sad parts of the autograph industry now is the amount of forgeries that there are. And you guys take very, very special and important care to make sure that all the autographs that you sell, you receive via trade, or anything like that are authentic. Can you talk about your authentication process?
Well, I mean, as far as the events that we do, if we have something signed or if we purchase something to sell, put our certificate of authenticity on it, either detailing the date it was signed if it was one of our events or we got it signed ourselves at something, or we'll put our, I hate to say generic, our standard COA if it's an item that we'll just guarantee for life. So if we were to buy a Harmon Killebrew ball, we might put our COA on it. And then if a person ever buys an item from us, and they're to send it in and have it authenticated, and for some reason it was returned as not authentic, or what's the other one that they say? Unknown. What do they say? There's like a JSA one that's slipping my mind, where they can't determine 100% either way. If the person wants to, we'll give them 100% refund for their purchase price plus the actual fee for sending it out. So we don't mess around with non-Minnesota stuff much at all. And to be honest, there's not a lot of Minnesota stuff, with the exception of maybe, Kirby Puckett, Randy Moss, Adrian Peterson, and Brett Favre. Those are probably the main guys that would be potentially forged. I mean, for the most part, Minnesota autographs are pretty safe because they don't trade for the exorbitant amount of money that, values that like a Ted Williams or a Mickey Mantle or a Babe Ruth. So even a guy like Harmon Killebrew, he's got a very distinct signature, and from having seen it, hundreds or thousands of times, most Twins collectors have a pretty good idea. Kirby Puckett is more challenging just with his variations and his signatures, and there is some value to him, so there are some people who will give that a shot. You can see some pretty fake autographs if you look on eBay right this minute of Kirby Puckett. We're just very careful with what we buy. Even with Kirby Puckett, or especially with Kirby Puckett, we just, have to have a really good feeling about those types of things. And we don't claim to be experts in every autograph for every team. So that's really why we stay away from a lot of non-Minnesota stuff, unless it comes with, Upper Deck authenticated or mounted memories, those first party type of authenticators. I'm not a huge third party authenticator guy myself. I mean, I don't love that all the way around because it's an opinion, but I do realize that that's, industry. What are acceptable in the industry are the JSAs and the PSAs. So there are times that we do deal in those. But generally, I mean, I prefer first party, the Upper Deck authenticators of the world if I'm going to buy that kind of stuff.
Now, have you guys found that offering the COA either with the item or for an additional fee has helped increase business, like in terms of signings? Like, obviously, if you get something signed but you don't have a COA for it and you don't take a picture of the athlete signing it and you decide to turn around and sell it, you're not actually, the person buying it's not actually going to know. But have you seen an increase in, since you guys started offering COAs, has your popularity for signings increased more because of the fact that, like you said, people know it's legit?
Well, for the bigger signings, so the Brett Favre and the Barry Sanders signings, those included COAs from their the companies that had the exclusives. So that makes sense. Then the bigger players, like when we had Randy Moss in, the more expensive the autograph, the more likely somebody is to buy a certificate of authenticity. So I don't know that it has changed sort of the business. I think we just will sell more if there's more value to the autograph. So if we have in like kind of a role player for the Twins, for example, we're not going to sell that many COAs because people don't look at it as like an investment. They look at it as their personal collectible.
Sure.
If that kind of answers that question, one of the things that we started doing fairly recently, started up again, is offering like a photo proof page, which goes through a website, and we're trying our best to take photos of every single person and each item as they're meeting the athletes now at the table, so they don't need to like lean back with their cell phones and take the pictures and sort of miss out on the opportunity to have an exchange with the athlete. We're trying to give you a chance. Go up, enjoy yourself, shake their hand, say hello, watch your item being signed, ask your question, whatever it might be. And then later, if you want, there's a digital or a printed version of your photo meeting that you can download or have printed. Actually, I think it's $10. Either version is like $10. So that's just an add-on that we've started fairly recently. We started with Barry Sanders, I think it was. So, people that got to meet Barry, he was shaking everybody's hand. It's pretty cool to get a photo of, you shaking Barry's hand for $10, and your item is sitting right there as well. So, from an authenticity standpoint, it's just one more piece to that. It's very specific. Depending on how clear the angle of the photo, it's very specific to your item that you're having signed. So, it's just an add-on thing that it's offered, not required. So we feel like it's something that's worthwhile for fans. It's a good option for people.
Now you guys do a booth at Twins Fest too. Talk about that, because Twins Fest is actually my favorite event of the year. It's the one event I'm able to kind of get down to, and I kind of I say no matter what, I'm going to Twins Fest almost every year. So talk to me about being a vendor down at Twins Fest, what you guys sell, how that atmosphere is different than kind of just being in the store in the mall.
Well, I mean, what's great about Twins Fest, right, is it's basically the kickoff to the baseball season. So everybody's excited, and it's the first opportunity to sort of jump into baseball season. So it's cool to get there and have all these guys coming in, the players, the Dozers and Torrey Hunter stopping by, and all the current former Twins just walking by the way they have it set up now at Target Field, just to be up and close to everybody there. But more importantly, it's sort of like getting on the same page with all the fans and having them stop by and say hello. And we see obviously at the store with the events, we see a lot of the regulars who will stop by for the events and so on. But Twins Fest brings, like you, so many other people from out of town, and that's when we get to see them, and say hello and sort of catch up on the year before. And so it's cool just to see all the new faces, or see a bunch of new faces, all the familiar faces from previous years who swing by. Really cool, some of the people will make a point of like wearing the stuff that they bought from us, last year, 2 years, a bunch of years ago, the cool old Morneau clothes or Nathan clothes or whatever it is. It's always kind of fun to see those coming through, an old Morneau hockey jersey or whatever it is. So I think that's what it is. I think it's the excitement, like for you, as much as it is about autographs, it's kind of like spring is coming, baseball's coming. It's just a really cool event to get everybody hyped up. So, we're selling stuff. It's always a great event for us selling stuff, along with the state fair. Those are our two big off-site events. We don't really do, sports card shows or anything anymore because we have a store.
Sure.
People, look at our stuff and say, oh, I'll just swing by the store and pick it up. The local people.
Right.
So doing a local card show isn't like a great option for us. But, when you're bringing people in from all over Minnesota, we definitely want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of the buzz and excitement, starting out. We try to do a giveaway each year, too. This year, I'm not sure what it'll be, but we'll probably give away, like, the shirt Jose Barrios wore, and either the shirt he wore or the ball he was slinging around in the photo shoot we just did with him. Try to have something, like a cool reason to swing on by and say hello to. So those usually we have the entry blanks, like, on our social media pages, and we'll email them out as well. So fans have a chance to do that. So try to come up with something a little bit unique for us there, but mostly it's just about, like, saying hello to everybody and getting excited for the season.
And right now, actually, for everybody, we're going to do a little plug. If you like the Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram, if you have those three accounts, you want to follow both Fan HQ and Soda Stick Co. They are co-sponsoring a giveaway for a signed Kent Hrbek piece and a really cool pair of Hrbek socks featuring his famous tag of Ron Gant at first base. So go online and check that out at Fan HQ Ink Addicts page. One of the other things that kind of happens being in a mall, and we've got about 15 minutes left, Shaun, is you really never know what's going to happen. Can you talk to me about that horrifying night you guys had in St. Cloud here about 2 years ago?
Yeah, that one, are you talking about when the guy ran through the mall? The guy was, yeah. You know, I was not there that day. I just got a phone call from our employee saying that he heard what he thought were gunshots and he was closing the gate. And, you know, that was really the extent of, like, what we knew at the time. My sister also runs a store in the St. Cloud Mall. I'm from St. Cloud. And so she was working as well, and they got kind of the note to lock down the store. So, I mean, it's kind of it's not something that you think about all the time, obviously, when you're sitting at the mall. But, yeah, I mean, these things are going on, you know, any public place now. You just never really have an idea of what could potentially happen, huh? So, yeah, but that was, I mean, by the time we knew anything about it, it was already over. You know, that it had already, by the time you heard, like, the gunshots, that was basically the end of what had happened. So nothing really happened at our store. The person had run right past our store, I guess, as the off-duty officer was chasing him. So, fortunately, not my employees or my sister or I mean, the majority of the people, nothing, you know, in the mall, nothing happened to. But, yeah, it's a pretty terrifying situation. And obviously, St. Cloud, it could happen anywhere. So, I mean, there's training. There's mall training that they send us, and they have active shooter or emergency training that we go through at the stores, just telling us what to do if something ever does happen. But, yeah, unfortunately, I hate to say the world we live in, right? But, we're still free society, and people, I mean, you're never going to protect. If somebody wants to be insane and not care about their own safety, they can pretty much do whatever they want, whether it's running through a mall or they have driving something. I mean, there's just difficult to control, impossible to control every potential outcome of violence or option for violence. Yeah. We should just talk about sports.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
That's awful.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the cool things that you guys do, and you kind of mentioned it, is you run a lot of polls. And one of the, if you go on to the Facebook Ink Addicts page right now and you scroll down, you have to find it quite a bit. You guys are kind of, I mean, as famous as you are, I think it's fairly safe to say that Haley might be just as famous as you are. She might be the face of HQ. And there's a poll going on that Dan posted that basically says, you guys would be shocked to know how many sports movies Haley hasn't seen. Which sports movie should she see? So my question, and The Sandlot is leading by like a lot. So
she's
Shaun, my
actually
question
seen The Sandlot. She has seen that one.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because, Shaun, my question for you was going to be when you're interviewing these people to come to work for you, you're not asking them if they've seen The Sandlot. I mean, come on.
I know, right? You would think. So one of the things, in all honesty, about, like, having great workers is to have people who understand the industry and they understand collectibles, but we've just sort of found that you don't necessarily want that to be their passion in a sense of where they're looking out for their own collection, you know? It kind of works better if they appreciate collections, appreciate how people value their collection, and they just look out for taking care of the customers to try to ensure that they get what they want, right? And,
absolutely.
You know, all of our employees, you know, when we do these events, our employees and volunteers typically get a photo with the guest, the group photo, and then typically an item signed and so on. So people do get stuff for that. But, I mean, you know, when you're hiring, it's all about getting intelligent people with great problem-solving skills who understand good customer service and are very, very reliable and impassioned about what they're doing. And you can remove the sports from it as long as you're incredibly fortunate with the group that we've had, you know, that we have with Jared Ardale, with Jared and Jerry Buttons going all the way back to when we started, and Dan running Eden Prairie, and Mike, the former manager at Eden Prairie, Haley, all of our part-timers. I mean, we just got a really great group of people that work there, and that, you know, certainly takes a load off of my mind when I take off for a couple days or whatever. Or just knowing that they sort of run the show, like you're saying with Haley. I'm trying to just let her and Dan, you know, have their stores. and then Jared and I will just go chase around rock and roll shows. So this just hasn't worked out yet. So
right now,
we're just super blessed, top to bottom blessed, #blessed with the group that we have. It's a really good group, and it hasn't really turned over that much if you think about it. It's a lot of the same faces, so people seem to enjoy what they're doing there. If you take bad direction well, that's my joke to them. Can you take bad direction well, then you can work for me. So
right. And one of the cool things that you guys always do is, you'll often post like, hey, I need a couple people to come out and help at the store, willing to trade a ticket to this event. I think that's a really, really cool thing to do. Do you usually get pretty good turnout with that when you offer deals like that?
Yeah, it's worked out pretty well. We had a couple people take us up on our Eduardo Escobar deal. We had a bunch of like hangers and apparel things to deal with, and we can get it done so much quicker with an extra pair of hands or two. So that helps out. That's again sort of a win-win. The fans want to stop by and they get a free autograph or photo or whatever they want, and it works out to get things done. During the State Fair, we'll end up asking for a bunch of help before that. We typically do, and we'll probably actually next week or the week after be doing the same thing, whether it's in-store, just in-store trade or specific event things. It works out well. I mean, that Incatics group, that we follow, and you see it on your Ultimate page as well. I mean, it's a really active group and really well-behaved. They look out for each other and so on. It's not like a ton of drama on that page. Because the collectors looking out for each other, and they sort of monitor themselves or bring it to my attention if somebody's getting out of line. So, I mean, it's just a really good group of people. It's also one of the reasons that we don't offer, like, buy, sell, trade on the page. I mean, one, we're a business, obviously, so we don't really need to be competing with our own customers. That's one of the reasons. But the other reason is, like, we don't want to get into the moderating and the, trying to look over deals, right? Arbitrating deals. He said it was this, and it ended up being this or whatever. It's like, by not allowing buying, selling, trading, it just removes so much drama from that page. That's one of the reasons, too. We decided that right away. And, we just send people, when people call me or they post, I mean, I send them to your page or to, like to the Vikings page, whatever it would be, and just say, post your item there. That's, they've got a good group, try it over there, So.
Right? Absolutely. Now, one of the cool things that you actually did, and I believe, I haven't been there, but I believe it's in the St. Cloud store, although it could be at Eden Prairie, too. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have kind of a half music store in one of your locations that you just opened up recently. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's ramping back up a little bit. With just so many collectors in the sports side of things also have a passion for music. And some of that just sort of rolls, that's why we started, like, the Rock and Jock events that we've done in the past. And so it was a natural. We have some friends who are in the record business, and now with Dan running the Eden Prairie store, I mean, he used to run Treehouse Records in Minneapolis for a million years, so he knows that business. And our person in St. Cloud, Jeff Peterson, he took what we were doing in St. Cloud at Rock and Jock, and when we closed that store, he basically turned it into his own store, which was UFTA Records. And he's running that full-time as a record store. We just set aside some, 3-4 racks in the middle of the Eden Prairie store for, like, a music assortment. And that we're going to have kind of a big kickoff grand opening, for lack of a better word, like in July 27th and 28th, it's looking like. So we're lining up some different things there. We want to do some cool things. But that's where we're really going to expand that record assortment again and make a bigger deal out of it. Right now we're still just acquiring inventory, so we haven't made a huge push. But, I mean, anyone who kind of knows records knows that, vinyl has just made a huge resurgence, and there's the same sort of collectible angle to a lot of it that there is with the sports stuff. So it seemed like a pretty natural fit for us and a lot of the same customers. So we'll have like a rock assortment right in the middle of the store there. And hopefully that gives us an opportunity to bring in music guests as well, because that's something that we've been just trying to do. And that's one of the things that we bring up all the time. Like, musicians don't quite get it yet, like people, celebrities, like entertainment and sports do. Those guys are used to coming out and signing autographs like that they do. They go to Wizard World or they come to sports stores or whatever they do when they sign autographs. But musicians just haven't quite got on board with that. They'll go and they'll do like a record signing when they have a new release, but I don't know if they really realize like the untapped potential of, coming out and doing a 1 hour, 2 hour appearance. Because guys like, the former KISS members, I mean, they would be a huge draw. There's so much merch out there that people would want to have signed. So we're really trying to, I hate to say we're trying to educate them because they obviously know it exists and so on, but we're trying to say, hey, this is tangible. It's tangible and it's not in bad taste. Like people in your age demographic, your collector demographic, want to be able to come out and meet you and have these items signed. And you don't have to play a 2 hour show and you don't have to bring a band. You can just come and hang out and sit at a table for a couple hours and meet a bunch of fans, and it can be a really cool event. So we're trying to do more of those things. And our Rita Ford adventure there, our first adventure doing that was awesome. That went just great. We've sold out tickets. She's telling stories. She's playing songs, photos, meet and greet at the end. She couldn't have been more generous with her time. To the point where we had to, move people along because she would have just sat and talked to everybody and they had to get on the road. And it was a really great first attempt at doing something like that. So we're trying to turn that into a model that we can sell to other touring musicians who, again, maybe they're coming to Minnesota to go play a big casino show or play Target Center, whatever it is. But, you're already here. You got an hour to burn. Come out and meet your fans. So we're pushing. We're working on it. So that's kind of one of our future things.
Absolutely. Shaun, I hate to cut you off. We got about 3 minutes and change left. You've been so generous. Let's talk a little bit about some of the Fan HQ events that you guys have coming up, as well as how fans can get a hold of you guys either via phone call or on social media.
Events we have coming up, we just have one public event that we're promoting right now, and that's Meet Ricky the Dragon Steamboat on July 28th at our Eden Prairie store. Those tickets are free, and they can be, you can stop by the Eden Prairie store and grab your ticket to meet Ricky the Dragon. Working on some other big things, something in October that I'm hoping to nail down later today, this week. That will be another pretty huge event. That's just a tease. We'll be sure to do that. You can join our text list, and then you'll never miss a signing announcement, and you just text the word FANHQ to the number 85100. So you send FANHQ 85100, and then the other way is just check out FANHQstore.com. That's our website. Ink Addicts Group is on Facebook, or Facebook.com/FanHQ should get you to our page as well. Or FanHQ Store, I'm not sure that's the problem. Some are FanHQ and some are FanHQ Store, depending on what was available when we signed up. So, but we're on all the social media platforms. Should be pretty easy to find on there. You can just jump to FanHQstore.com, and there's links to social media as well.
And if you do not use social media, they do also use the old-fashioned telephone. How can people get a hold of you via phone, Shaun?
952-545-6460 is the Ridgedale store. Eden Prairie is 952-204-3122.
Excellent, excellent. You guys have one of the biggest fan bases, along with Crave and things like that. We got about 60 seconds left. What's been your all-time favorite event? And give me 20 seconds worth of what's your all-time favorite event that you've personally done as a Fan HQ owner.
Yeah, it would have to be just the first Justin Morneau coat drive, just because that was the culmination of being a fan, turning that all the way into the business. That was pretty unreal. So I'll stick with Justin. It started with him, and I'll end with him. How about that?
Absolutely. Shaun, I cannot thank you enough for giving me an hour of your time on, I'm sure, what's one of your days off. I cannot thank you enough. If you guys have any questions, check out on Facebook. It's Fan HQ, their Ink Addicts page. Shaun threw out the phone numbers. They are also on Twitter. If you live in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, hit them up at either Eden Prairie or Rosedale. And if you're in St. Cloud, they are in the St. Cloud Mall as well. Shaun, thank you so much.
No, thank you, Dublin. Appreciate it, man. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. We'll see you soon.
All right, talk to you soon. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Shaun Hagglund of Fan HQ owner. He has 3 locations, and man, I'll tell you, that guy's got some stores. He's got some stores. He's got some stories. It's a pretty cool thing to listen to Shaun talk about the different signings he's done, and he also kind of talked about, a little bit about kind of that night in St. Cloud a couple of years ago. But you can really kind of see that it's not about him, it's about the fans, it's about the collectors, and he touched on that with his employees. They're not in it for themselves, they're in it for the fans, making sure that they get what they need. So remember, if it came from HQ, it's authentic. Guys, I have another episode coming up here in about 3 hours. It's going to be the Tommy John episode. I'm very, very excited about that. Stick around, stay tuned, and we will see you down the road in podcast land.